You're listening to Pole Parlour, a fun, inspiring podcast for all those bewitched by pole dance. Each week, your Madam Crimson Minxxx has candid conversation with unique, engaging individuals from within and around the pole dance community. Pole Parlour is passionate about preaching creativity, soulful sensuality, and empowerment through pole dance.
You know how we do.
Welcome everyone to Pole Parlour. This is episode 21, Karol Helms. I'm your host, Crimson Minxxx. On this episode, we have Karol Helms. Karol is an OG pole dancer who has been in the industry for over 10 years and has been a pioneer in helping the community evolve into what it is today. On this episode, we talk about her experience discovering pole while dancing at a club and the struggles of learning pole in a time before proper studios and social media, her early adventures creating her YouTube following and connecting with other pioneering dancers from around the world, her role as a brand ambassador and in developing the Bad Kitty original pole wear line, and her current life as a non-competitive pole dance professional. And don't forget to head over to the blog at poleparlour.com to check out Karol's post-podcast interview where she shares her favorite photos, music, video, and more. And while you're there, check out the Pole Parlour shop for some fun, irreverent pole wear. So let's get started. Welcome, Karol Helms, to the Pole Parlour podcast. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Oh, doing fantastic. Even better now that I'm talking to you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So let's jump on in. So for how long have you been pole dancing, and how did you first discover pole?
Well, I've been pole dancing unofficially since 2002, and so I guess that makes about 14 years now. And I discovered pole dancing in the clubs. So I was an exotic dancer for the first 4 or 5 years of my pole career.
Okay. So that's how, and was pole like a thing back then, or you really was just kind of like basic level spins, tricks, dancing at the club?
Right. So when I first started there was a girl there that did a couple of things, and looking back, they were just really simple spins and like fan kicks and things, but I just thought it was amazing. So I would go in super early every day and practice when nobody was really there, and I kind of just came up with things on my own because there wasn't really any resources back then to like learn from. Mm-hmm. And probably at about 2004, 2005 is about the time that S Factor came around. And there still was not YouTube then, so YouTube wasn't until about 2006. So I had researched online on Google for like pole dance instruction or videos, and I found Fania's DVDs, Pole Work Volume 1, which I think we all happened along back in the day. But that was the first time I saw the handspring and kind of got an inkling that there was like something more to pole other than outside of what I was doing in the club. So my interest was piqued. And then in 2006, YouTube kind of became a thing, and people were on YouTube looking at funny cat videos. And I was just on there really late one night after work, and I had looked up pole dancing videos. And one of the first that came up was Felix Kane, her 2005 Miss Pole Dance America.
Australia?
Miss Pole Dance Australia. And so it was when she had the really short hair and she danced to the Alice song.
Yes.
And so I was immediately like, wow, this is completely unlike anything I've ever seen or done myself in the club. And I also happened along Alina Downs' videos. She was Canadian with Pole Junkies long time ago, back in the day. And then there was also an English girl by the name of Tara Karina that was one of kind of the first pole videos that I found, and it was just her dancing in what I believe was her garage, but not completely sure. But they were just amazing. So I would analyze them and then go to the club and try the tricks that I found online. And then eventually I started posting my own videos on YouTube. So it wasn't until about 2004, 2005, maybe 2006 that I started venturing outside of like the 5 things that, I had kind of taught myself without any like external resources. So about 10 years, 10, 12 years, something between there. It's a little hazy.
Yeah, and that's okay. You were young then too, and it wasn't,
I feel like the first 4 years I just did the same 5 moves over and over again. So
whatever gets you paid at that point.
Expanding my pole vocabulary that I really count, like, being into pole.
That makes sense. Okay. And so, yeah, we won't hold you to the full 14 years of heavy training then. But, and I forgot to ask, this was in North Carolina? Is this where?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where you grew up, where you still are, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up in the Charlotte area in North Carolina. So I've been here most of my life.
Cool. And so growing up, were you a dancer? Do you have a history in that? Or did you not really start dancing till you were older?
Funny enough, I was a huge tomboy growing up. And so I raced motocross, I ran track, I played basketball, I played softball. I never wore makeup or dresses or skirts.
Or 8-inch heels.
Yeah, or 8-inch heels, or did my hair. So it was really, it wasn't really until I became an exotic dancer when I started becoming more in touch with my girly, sexy side.
That's cool. I mean, when we were younger, it's weird when, if now everyone's kind of like younger, a bit oversexed. I think you came into it at the correct age. So it was nice that you could like tumble around at a younger age.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned before YouTube. And so for those who don't know, Karol was one of the first people to start like really posting to YouTube with intention, correct? And
right.
Because like you said at the time, there weren't, it sounds like from just the people I've talked to on this podcast that started around the time you guys were all looking for the same thing, but didn't have the resources to connect with each other. And then this online thing happened, and then all of a sudden, you're in North Carolina, someone's in Canada, someone's in LA, someone's in New York, and you're all just like, wow, that person's like me. And you're connecting online. So what was your what launched you to say, hey, I'm going to actually start really pursuing this, start posting this on YouTube? Because I have talked to many people who said that you specifically were such a huge influence in them.
Oh.
Yes, learning when there weren't studios in their town yet, and having access to knowing that there was even this world out there.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if starting out I had an intention other than just sharing what I was doing. And back then we were all kind of also creating at the time because, there was only such a small vocabulary of moves that we all kind of knew and grew with. So it seemed like every week there was, new discoveries and little happy accidents that kind of turned into moves on their own. So I just started kind of posting like my practice videos. Sometimes I would leave all the bloopers and fails in there. But yeah, I think my intention was just YouTube was still so new, and it just seemed like a cool place to like upload your videos and share them with the world and like check out what I'm doing. And then it became a sort of place for community around the pole fitness, pole dance industry, because back then it was kind of the only way that we had to communicate and connect with each other, because Facebook hadn't even been opened up to the public. It was still a college format. So other than MySpace, we were on YouTube posting our pole dance videos and commenting on each other's videos and complimenting and making suggestions and creating moves together. sharing things that we learned. Also, we would kind of chat about like what should we call this move, and so it was kind of like we were creating this thing out of nothing, and we were doing it together. And it wasn't until quite a few years later that we started having competitions and things to actually meet up and be in person and around all of our YouTube friends and fanatics.
That's cool. What were some of the early events that allowed you to meet people?
There was an event very early on called Rock the Pole by Michaela Nunez, who is out of Redlands, California.
Okay.
And she owned Antics Fitness. I believe she still does. A powerful little tiny little pole dancer, but she did an event, and that was one of the first times that I met Leanne Riley and Esty Zakar. Gosh, I'm trying to think of who else OGs were there. It's been, well, that was 2009, so it's been 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And then in around the same year, there was the first USPDF competition in the spring of 2009. And so that was literally the first time we all came out of YouTube and descended on a city and met and shared, a whole weekend together, like taking workshops. It was my first class, like formal pole dance class. It was with Wendy Traskos at New York Pole Dance. And I met Alethea, met all the competitors that were there that weekend, and have made so many friends and still have so many friends that we connected that weekend in New York City. And it's just so wild and crazy to think about how many events and the amount and size of the events now compared to our little, probably 200 plus people at the very first USPDF Nationals.
Oh my gosh. I've heard about this competition. Who won it? Do you recall?
Janine Butterfly won it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was Janine's big U.S. win. And then later in that same year, they opened up a West Coast Regionals and an East Coast Regionals. And I came in first place on the East Coast Regionals.
Congrats.
And thank you. And so that was my very first time being on stage in front of that many people, and also being judged for, my pole dancing abilities. First time, like, creating a routine that wasn't freestyled in the club. So it was a very new experience, but the girl who won the West Coast Regionals in 2009 was Amber Richard. And she was also one of the YouTube OGs from back in the day. So it was kind of like, we kind of like grown on YouTube together, and now kind of sprouted out into this world, because there weren't a whole lot of even just studios back then across the U.S. The pole fitness movement was mainly taking place in Australia, England, not even really that big in Europe yet. So there was probably a handful of studios across the U.S., so it's really hard to connect with each other and find community. So that was the community that we had, existed mainly online.
That's cool. Are those like early videos still up on your account?
Oh yeah, I've left a lot of my early embarrassing videos online. They have a lot of views, and sometimes I still go back and watch them, and I'm like, oh man, why don't I do that little move anymore? And albeit they're kind of sloppy, and my extension is bad, and my feet are floppy, and ankles are bad. But it just goes to show you that you can start with no dance or gymnastics background or abilities, and with enough practice and want to and desire, you can improve on those things and become, whatever you want to.
Yeah, it's more the passion into it. If you're so into it that you're willing to do it at home by yourself without a studio to motivate you to go to and still achieve all that you've done, yeah, you're going to get the nuances. You're going to get, the polishing done eventually.
Yeah. And I learned a lot in the clubs dancing. It teaches you a lot about coming up with things on the fly and freestyling and listening to the music and not worrying so much about, an audience.
Yeah, that's true because people are watching you with completely different intent and you're trying to engage them in a completely different manner, not for like points, but for money.
Yeah, yeah. So it's the same thing, but kind of different too. And I think I learned a lot of my style there, and I think that's what I can take from that time in my life and that time in my pole dance kind of career.
Yeah, your swag,
Yeah.
your pole swag.
Yep.
Cool. So you said that you did the club for like 4 years and then it sounds like you really got wrapped into the pole community more. So then, what did you end up doing to turn this into a career for yourself? What was available to you even? It's so funny because I always think people are going to go back and listen to this and just like roll their eyes and laugh. Like we talk about 7 years ago, like it's 70 years ago, but
Yeah.
in
Well,
our
it
life.
feels like 70.
Yeah. But it's true. It's like 7 years ago. That's so long ago in the pole community. So you had to probably create a lot of opportunities for yourself in order to like maintain a life and an income, right? Like you
Yeah,
toured, you
I mean, I still worked in the club, when I did, but eventually, more and more studios began popping up all over the U.S. and more touring opportunities became available, as well as more competitions, more showcases, more events like PoleCon started in 2010.
Okay.
And as well as sponsorship opportunities. So sponsors would want you to travel here and, do trainings or come and be at their booth for, a particular expo event.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as the community grew, those opportunities grew. I don't know if we made them for ourselves, but this pole fitness industry really started kind of catching fire and becoming a real thing that like everyday ladies did and wanted to do. And from that, I think, they kind of, like we did, seeked out resources, and those resources were us. And so they're like, come here and teach us your ways. And
Yeah.
and I think, then because we were the ones that, there was only two competitions in 2010, and those were USPDF and I believe Eats Meets West had started by then.
Okay.
But there wasn't as many other people being exposed, I guess, out there, other than the 10 to 12 competitors in, the regional competitions and the nationals. And so I think with the growth came more opportunities to travel and teach.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you did create the opportunities because you putting yourself out there on YouTube and bringing yourself to these competitions and things like that did give yourself a name, and it gave these companies a reason to create themselves, and it gave Expo a reason to grow and all of this. So give yourself some credit. You definitely helped create the industry. Because without you guys, who would they even be appealing to, So,
Right.
So, since you brought it up, the working with companies, one of the big companies that you started working with early on was Bad Kitty.
Right.
And you are a brand director there. I believe that is your title. So how did that connection happen? What was your involvement?
So that connection happened in about late 2009, early 2010. There was a small competition in New York City called Miss Pole Superstar. And Bad Kitty was in attendance and met Alethea Austin and Mina Mordezai. And I believe Esty Zakar was also there competing. But they approached the ladies after watching, what they had seen on stage, and were just blown away because at the time Bad Kitty was just a small company that worked with a distributor and sold, stripper clothes. And that was kind of it. And other than X-Pole at the time, there was no other pole companies out there. There weren't any pole clothing companies or pole apparel companies by any means. So I think they saw a really up and coming industry and an opportunity to get in early and create something really exciting. And so they approached us for about working with them to create clothing for pole dancers by pole dancers. And so our relationship began in 2010, and we started developing the princess tops and spiderback tops and the Brazil shorts. And so our goal was to have clothing that was a little bit more appropriate for studio use, instead of just shopping on the stripper websites, which is what most of us were doing. And, we had little tiny crotches with our shorts, and, not everything was staying where it should have been. And if you wore dance stuff, it just wasn't sexy. And a lot of the cuts just aren't sexy at all. So we started developing a pole fit line. And after about 2 years of development, they started coming out with the spiderback top was first, and we did a go-go short and the Brazil short, and that just in black. And now we have over 20 different tops and 20 different shorts and 30 different colors and color combos and print combos that you can choose from. So it's really exciting to have been a part of this little dream that we had about, let's just make, awesome pole clothing that everybody will want to buy, to, this awesome company that Bad Kitty has become today. So I feel really lucky to be a part of it.
Yeah. Do you still work with them? And
Yeah. So besides Bad Kitty, I'm also an X-Pole athlete, and I work closely with Mighty Grip as well as Stunt Grip, Glitter Heels, Pole Idol. And I love Girly Grip. Sue Hooker over there is amazing. And I also get shoes from Aura Heels here in Raleigh, North Carolina, as well as Diamond Diva Designs that are here in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I kind of represent all of those brands. X-Pole and Bad Kitty have definitely been, my sponsors for the longest out of all of those. And they're, I guess, my biggest sponsors, just based on the size of their companies. The rest of them are kind of pole friends who have, developed something that, is really awesome. And so I'm like, yeah, those are awesome, and I would love to be a part of that. Like Glitter Heels, that's Tiffany Hayden's.
Yes, her shoes are...
I know, her shoes are amazing. I know, and they're so worth it. If you can buy a pair, buy them. The same with Aura Heels. Melanie there and her husband Alan, they're just good friends, and she's a pole dancer student, and her husband is, an electronics nerd, and so he just got this great idea to LED a pair of heels for her, and now they have a business. So it's just things like that are just really cool and like awesome stories to share about and be a part of, just to see like, somebody's little seed of an idea become this huge, awesome, thriving business and industry.
Yeah, I'm going to put all of everyone that you represent. I'll put them in the show notes if people are interested. I think it's really important to support these brands. So it's so great.
Okay. Yeah.
So people who are listening, you can go in the show notes and check them all out, because you're right. It's like when you're starting out as these small brands, like I can't imagine the LED shoes, as amazing as they are. And I've been with people who dance with them, and I intend to get a pair for myself one day, but it's not like they can like sponsor you to like send you around the world or anything like that. So I just think that speaks to like your character to be, to represent them still, and, to rep them even here on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've they've been amazing to me, and they have amazing stuff, and I just want everybody to know about it.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because I didn't know this originally because when I started polling, I've only been polling for like 3.5 years. And I always thought Bad Kitty was like this, athletic kind of fitness pole brand. And when I did a little more research, I was like, oh no, this was like clubwear. They started as a clubwear brand, so I have to get someone on the show from them eventually. So to speak to them more about it. But I just think it's so amazing how they have a presence. Them and Expo have a presence everywhere.
Yes.
Well,
I mean, the X-Pole and Bad Kitty have definitely both been a presence in the pole industry as well, just because they've supported almost every event and every competition and every showcase that is out there.
Yeah.
As well as, they're really about supporting the industry and showing the industry in a good light, and they really do treat their ambassadors and sponsors or sponsorees, like movie stars, like superstars.
I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah. So, as hope that they only grow larger and are more successful because of that, because they really are embedded in the community. So
they are. I'm not sure our community would be where it is today if it wasn't for X-Pole and Bad Kitty.
Yeah, I completely agree. So that's so cool. So you've and really you've grown up with them as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any like fun stories you can share with us from, I have to imagine that from these early days, these OG days, that you have to have something that maybe we don't know about that could be a really fun OG story.
Oh man. Lots. I feel like, so my very first X-Pole was purchased from the UK, before there was an X-Pole USA. I needed it. I had to have it. None of the other poles is what I wanted. It was a 50 millimeter chrome. It's a dinosaur. I still have it. It's like collecting dust in my corner. And then 6 months later, X-Pole USA opened. So I literally ended up buying the X-Pole from UK and paying almost what I paid for it in shipping. And then 6 months later was X-Pole USA. But another little funny story is the first time that I met Clive from X-Pole UK was at my birthday party at the very first Pole Show LA. And so it just happened that the show was on my birthday day. And so afterwards they had like a little surprise birthday party and cake. And a lot of the guests hung out because, we're all like, a bunch of pole fans and friends. So we hung out and partied. And there was this one older gentleman that was really sticking out like a sore thumb, was dressed so nicely in like a suit. And the rest of us are, we're pole dancers. We're running around half naked. And then plus it was at B-Spun. So then you have, the jiu-jitsu guys. And so he was definitely out of place, and came up and started talking to me, and he had an English accent, and I was still very confused as how he fit into this whole equation until he finally told me he was Clive from, X-Pole UK. And then it clicked and made sense. But me and Clive have had a great relationship since then. And then I think the same night was when I was introduced to Ty from X-Pole US. And shortly after that is when, they kind of asked me to become, sponsored by them. And at first that kind of just meant like I got a free pole. And then, as the years went on, as the years went on, obviously, more and more perks come along with that, and depending on, where they needed us and, all of that. But it's a lot of fun to just think back about meeting people for the first time and thinking so like Clive was just such an out of place, and now I feel like he's just a staple at every pole event. Like, where's the old man in the nice little suit, the English accent?
I wonder how he got involved in pole.
He's actually the engineer and
Ah,
designer
he's an
of
engineer.
X-Pole.
Gotcha. Well,
Yep.
that's important
If
because,
you ever get a chance to talk to him about it, it's an interesting story.
oh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna look for him. I
Oh,
have
he
an X pole. It's right
invented.
behind me.
He's actually a rocket scientist, and
Oh,
he's invented rocket packs, and then he invented the X pole, and I think that's kind of been his life ever since then, I think.
so we had Stephen Retchless on, and he was talking about how he learned on poles from Spencer Gifts, and he
Oh,
like
oh
kept
no.
breaking them.
I can imagine those cheap little $70 poles.
Yeah, so that is why Carol needed to order one from the UK because
Yeah.
she would have like fallen on her head or like
No,
broke her
I'd
neck.
watched enough fail videos on YouTube that I knew I didn't need an X pole or a dance pole from Spencer's.
Yeah, and people always ask me when they come over and they see my X pole and they're like, "Oh, does that fall down? How does that stay
Yeah.
up?" And I'm always like, "I don't know. I just filed the video and I installed it. It has been up for like 3 years. I have had heavy dudes try to jump on it and it does not budge. And so now I have the answer. This was invented by a rocket scientist, okay?
Yep.
So
It was. It
don't
was.
concern
You have
yourself.
that answer now.
Yes, everyone does. And now everyone can feel a little safer when they pull on an X pull. So what is up with Carol now? Are you still competing? Are you teaching workshops? Like what's your passion in the pole community right now?
Um, so I am not competing. I haven't competed in pole since 2012. I do spend a lot of time judging still. I particularly like judging because I feel like I'm a little bit of an analytical kind of person. I'm very visually analytical, so I do like judging and enjoy that. But I'm also still traveling and teaching quite a bit. I mean, I've been doing this now since 2009, 2010, so about 5, 6, 7 years that I've been traveling and, doing all the pole has been, my life, my all-consumed life. But I have, especially this year, tried to slow down with my travel, even though it still doesn't feel like I have. I think I have, but
I
so
feel
I'm
like
still,
you're everywhere, so I don't know.
I still feel like I'm everywhere too, and I'm like, eventually people are just going to stop asking me to come to things, right? But has not been the case so far. So I am still doing quite a bit of like workshop traveling, and I love to go to PoleCon and Pole Expo every year. I definitely try to do a couple of camps per year. And then I also host my own show every year here in Charlotte called Odd Ones Out Pole and Aerial Showcase. So that has kind of consumed some of my home time, especially the years that it's gone on. I have not been able to secure a venue for this year. It usually happens in June, but the venue that we used to use shut down last year. So I'm looking for a completely new, amazing, perfect venue. And I know I'll find it. It's out there. I just have to find it. But other than that, I actually help my friend part-time too. She has a custom cookie company that she covers Oreos and chocolate and screen prints little images and pictures and logos. You're amazing. So I eat about 5 Oreos a day that I'm over there working for her. And then she also has a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old that I help nanny part-time as well. And then other than that, I garden, I craft. I have 3 cats and a dog. So I stay pretty busy over here outside of just pole. So I definitely spread myself in a lot of different areas, but I just love to travel and teach. Mm-hmm. So I'm still doing a lot of that, and I'm also teaching locally at Inner Diva Studios here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I teach Wednesday nights there. Come to my class.
I'm flying out sometime for sure.
You should. It'd be fun. I'll show you Charlotte.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
I've been to Charlotte, but not for any longer than a layover at the airport. But your airport's lovely. But eventually,
Yeah, there's a lot more to my city than the airport, but the airport isn't too bad.
It's very nice if anyone
Yeah.
has the opportunity, but I can't wait to see the city itself. But that's cool that you really do kind of keep yourself busy in other areas. It keeps the passion for pole alive. And I want to hear more, though, about Odd Ones Out. So what kind of show is it? Is it just pole? Is it other type of performances?
The majority of it is pole,
Okay.
but I'd say about 80% of it is pole. And then we have aerialist, like aerial silks, lyra,
Cool.
duos, aerial duos, pole groups. I also have a guy who does poi. I have a couple of fire dancers, some burlesque dancers. So it's kind of like a little variety show, but mainly pole, just because that's, my community. And it started out as I wanted to kind of create more local opportunities for local pole dancers. And by local, I just mean the whole state of North and South Carolina, because there's really just not a whole lot of, big shows or, competitions that even come to Charlotte, much less either of these states. So my goal was to just create, performance opportunities for all the local girls to get to go up and actually feel what it feels like to perform on like a big stage with professional lighting and professional poles in front of a real audience. So I started about 3 years ago, and except for this year, so keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully, I'm hoping for a winter show if I can still find that venue. So Charlotte has undergone a lot of like redevelopment, and so they're kind of closing a lot of places down, redeveloping some places. So keep your fingers crossed that I find something good.
Yeah, building a new venue for you.
But yeah, it was just a fun thing for me to do and to provide my local community, and to kind of bridge some of the studios together, because I'm not exactly affiliated. I don't belong to any particular studio in town. So I'm kind of like Switzerland, where they can all come together and play in the sandbox. And, so it makes for a really good local community when we can all like kind of come together and do these kinds of shows, and everybody gets, promotion for their studios and their businesses and their students and their instructors.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun. But last year I had 60 performances, or 60 performers.
I was like, holy crap, that's a long night.
Yeah. I think I'm giving you the wrong number. I think it was about 32 performances, because the first year we had 14. So yeah, I think it was about 32 in all. Wow. In one night. Still a lot.
Yeah, it's totally a lot.
Still a lot, yes. I mean, it's grown a whole lot, and so I'm really working hard to try and bring it back this year for everybody.
Oh, well, the delay just helps you kind of brainstorm it a bit more, helps it grow a bit more. So that's so amazing that you do that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I like, I like performing, and I just wanted to be able to provide, my little local girls and students, that chance to kind of feel that rush when you get off stage. And it's not anything that, it's not something that everybody can experience.
Yeah, totally. That's so
and not
amazing.
Everybody can travel to, something and pay a submission fee to, perform in something, or get hired to perform in something. So
yeah, or some, people want to do a group routine or something like that, something that maybe isn't standard. We had Amy Guy on from PSO a couple weeks ago, and she has the opportunity for people to compete at all different levels, which is really cool. But some people may not want to necessarily be judged, or they want to do a group performance or something. So I just always am so excited to hear about these other opportunities and popping up around the world for people. So if anyone is in North Carolina and South Carolina and doesn't know about it, get in touch with Karol.
Yeah. Check out our Facebook page. It's Odd Ones Out, Pole and Aerial Showcase.
I'll put that link in the show notes too.
Okay.
And you're still performing though, right?
Oh yeah, I still perform quite a bit. Okay. I love performing. I'd say out of all of the things, the hats that I wear, judge, perform, teach, compete, I think teaching is definitely my favorite hat to wear. just because I've always been a natural teacher, and so I find it really easy to to teach, and also, who doesn't love like teaching somebody and then they finally nail that thing, or watching your students get stronger and stronger every week with something that they may have struggled with 6 weeks ago, and now 6 weeks later they can do it and they're doing it perfectly, and that's fun. It's what I enjoy about teaching.
It's a talent. I couldn't do it. So don't make it sound so easy. So teaching, traveling, doing workshops, performing still, that's kind of where you see yourself doing, producing your showcase. And
yeah,
that's a lot. And Bad Kitty, don't forget.
Yeah.
Rad.
Yes.
Cool. So heading into the second part of the interview, the questions that we ask everyone. Question number 1 is, who is Karol Helms' pole crush?
Oh, wow. Any sexy Russian right now.
What's up with them? How do they do that
Olga,
shit?
Daria. Oh, gosh. All the names are escaping me, but any of the sexy Russians right now that are probably flooding your Instagram or mine.
And you don't really ever say their name out loud.
I just love it because, well, I can barely ever say their last name, so I won't try. But a couple of my favorites are Olga and Daria, and God, why can't I think of her name? Dark hair.
Bembo?
Eva Bembo. Yes.
Oh,
so they're probably tops for me right now, only because I feel like there's this resurrection of it being okay again to be sexy in the pole community. But I think what I love about them is that they take movements that that I've been doing forever and just make them look so different, or add a little hip flare here and there, and kind of really just roll and slink around the pole. And that's the way I want to move.
They make it look so easy. Like, you'll see it.
And they don't, they don't do like a bunch of hard tricks. Sometimes their feet never actually leave the floor. And that's just lately where I'm the happiest, is just feet and or hands and knees on the floor.
Yeah, some low flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really creative.
That means I'm getting old in my...
No.
I'm getting gray in my pole years, or what's going on. But yeah, I'm starting to slow down and really enjoy the floor quite a bit.
Oh, that's rad. Yeah, there's only so much. You can't just keep doing the same thing, and you're gonna, maybe in a few years you're just gonna want to stay up top the whole time and never come down. You just never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Russians, like, they are so freaking creative. They're doing things that they're creating like an entire like genre of pole that is so identifiably Russian, which is cool. I can't do any of it, but I love watching it.
Yeah, I second that.
And so how would you like to see the pole community evolve over the next 5 years?
Well, I just hope that the pole community, continues to grow, continues to live and let be, no matter what kind of genre or style is your favorite. Just realize that they all exist for everybody. If you want to be more fitnessy and gymnasticy with your pole dance, then there are places and idols that you can look up to that are just that. And if you want to be sexy and have your feet never leave the floor and just roll around on the floor, then there's plenty of that, and that's okay too. And if you're, an ex-dancer, or you like the contemporary ballet side of pole, then I just feel like everybody should not have to, apologize for styles that they don't like, or styles that they want to like, or the way that they just want to be. And just because you are one thing 1 minute doesn't mean that you always have to be that one thing either. So I just would like a lot of the riffs that I see in the pole industry to kind of, remember that we're just pole dancers. We're just pole dancing. So I think we can sometimes take ourselves a little too seriously. and forget what it is that kind of brought us all into pole. So I just hope that the pole industry in the next 5 years can continue to maintain its sameness, and live and let be, and continue to grow. I hope that I see more and more studios popping up, and more pole in the mainstream media.
Yeah. All good hopes for the future.
Yeah.
I agree with all of those. We'll all benefit from those.
Yeah, I keep feeling like, I've seen pole grow in just leaps and bounds, and it's crazy. And I feel like at some point that we're going to witness a plateau and then, a cliff dive, but, it hasn't happened yet, and I don't feel like it will. I feel like pole is here to stay. I feel like there's enough, pole junkies in the world that we'll all survive and be around for a long time to say, back when I was a little pole dancer.
Yeah, instead of it being like 7 years ago, now I'm ancient. It is going to be like 20
then I'll really
years
be
ago.
gray-haired and talking about, 30 years ago, we were pole dancing.
Yeah, without our jetpacks. Could you imagine? That's some OG shit.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so what do you have coming up? You mentioned a few things throughout. So you said you are going to be at Pole Expo, so that's where people can catch you. Are you performing there? Are you teaching workshops?
So this coming weekend, in a few days, I'll be going to the North American Pole Dance Championships in Illinois. And then after that, my next thing is I'll be at the S Factor in Houston, July 30th and 31st. So come get your sexy on if you're in Houston. And then I'll be at Pole Expo. So I'm teaching a couple workshops. I'm teaching my down and dirty, which is floor work. There might be a couple more spaces left. I think last time I looked, it was full or filling. And then I'm also teaching kinetic static pole, which is all about creating momentum on static pole, which is one of my favorite things to teach. Not always my favorite thing to teach on stages, but you do what you can. It's Pole Expo. But I'll be performing and or walking in the Bad Kitty Fashion Expo, possibly judging one of the Bad Kitty tricks and spins battles. I will be posted at some point at the Expo booth and at some point at the Bad Kitty booth as well as Alethia's booth. Will probably be meandering all around that place. And then I have, at the end of September, I have Gravity First Key West Pole Camp. And that's September 26th through October 1st. And that's at Key West. It's amazing.
Are there still spaces for that if people are interested?
I think there are still spaces for that. You can check out Gravity First Key West Facebook page or just Google them. But the pole camp is September 26th. And I think there's a few more spaces.
Oh my gosh, margaritas and Key West and pole dancing.
Yes, it's going to be it's going to be me. I believe Heidi Coker is going to be there, and quite a few other instructors. So we've got a good lineup of instructors. It's going to be a fun week of pole in Key West. And I love Key West.
Wow. Oh, that sounds really fun. I'll put that link in the show notes. Guys, anything you need is in the show notes, all right? You don't have to be writing this down right now, but I don't want anyone to miss out on any of these amazing opportunities because it sounds like you're busy as hell these next few months.
I am, and then it slows down usually in November, and I start helping my friend with her cookie business for Christmas time. Yep. So I'll be gaining about 10 pounds in cookies.
I think you work hard enough that you burn it off. I don't think you have to worry about some Oreos.
But it shows even more when I do have too many Oreos.
Oh my goodness. I could not stand that temptation. Good for you.
It's hard. I can't either. That's why I'm eating them all.
Well, you better not eat her profit margins. My goodness.
No, it's only the ones that we mess up.
Oh, okay, that's fair then. Totally fine. These don't even have calories if they're broken.
Sometimes
so don't even worry.
Sometimes we intentionally mess them up though.
I would do the same thing. I follow you there. Cool. So before we wrap things up, can you leave us with an empowering message or quote or anecdote, anything to sign off with?
Yes. So whenever anybody asks me, what is your message of empowerment, or, what would your message be to somebody just starting out in pole? And to me, it would be to not worry about the destination, but enjoy the journey. I think a lot of times when we first start in pole dancing, and even when you're, been in pole for a few years, you kind of look at these things on Instagram and, YouTube, if anybody even watches YouTube anymore, and Facebook, and you kind of aspire to get there, and you want to get there as quickly as possible, that you forget to kind of enjoy where you're at and perfect your technique and really explore the moment that you're in pole, and not worry so much about getting to the top of the mountain, because you're never going to get to the top of the mountain. That mountain just keeps going. So just try to experience the time of pole that you're in that very moment, and not rush yourself through an awesome experience.
Oh, that's so true. And I saw
Take your time and savor the bruises.
Yeah, I saw you speak at PoleCon once about the importance of like not rushing past like getting even your invert properly.
Right.
Properly. That's not a really eloquent way of saying it, but you said it better. But don't rush to get that trick on the top of the pole if you can't even invert properly at the bottom of the pole. So, right. That's all playing to it, because everyone's so excited to reach that upper echelon. So it's fun at every point. So
yeah, I just think a lot of times we're worried about that end result, and we're not living in the moment and being here and exploring where we actually are, where our abilities are actually in the moment.
Yeah, 100% agree. That's great advice. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Cool. And it was so great talking with you today. It's amazing how much you've really done in the industry, just in our, what we covered today, which is not even, a majority of what you contributed. So
yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for, letting me talk about my pole history and, my hopes and dreams for the pole industry.
It was rad. It was so great having you. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, Carol. Thank you for listening to the Pole Parlour podcast. Want more? Visit poleparlour.com for show notes and to link to the Facebook group where you can connect with other poloholics and continue the conversation. Listen to past episodes and subscribe to new episodes on the website, YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud. Lots of love, babes. Thanks for listening.